Today we're going to go over home pricing in Hawaii. We're gonna go over different strategies for pricing different homes, and we're also gonna talk about what the market's doing. Pricing even 2 months ago, say even 2 to 4 weeks ago, is different than it is today. There's a market shift happening right now. So I'm gonna address that with pricing strategies for all these different kinds of homes. Most of the content on this channel is for buyers. This one, no shame, like obviously, we wanna appeal to sellers. But this is a 2-for-1. It's super relevant to buyers. How are we going to write our offers? What's the market doing? You need to be in the mind of sellers. And when sellers are strategizing selling their home, they need to be in the mind of buyers. I have to lay out some context. It's May 2022. I have like 5 listings coming, and I'm actually calling them right now, and we're discussing getting on the market ASAP, even if the renovations aren't finished, because we feel a shift in the air. The Federal Reserve members and all those people are meeting in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. So interest rates are supposed to go up 0.5%. It's a big hike, and there's gonna be multiple more hikes. Like, they've made it clear, we are raising interest rates to combat inflation, etc. That's happening this year 3 more times, including this one. So potentially 2 more times after this, maybe more, who knows? Water is being thrown on the fire. So what does that mean? I feel, and the higher level people in my office feel, my industry partners feel, at least here on Oahu, in most markets at a macro scale, the days of saying name your firstborn after me, put me on your life insurance plan, that irrational seller's market, it seems that we've shifted off of that. I think we stay like 56 escrows right now in our office. So we have our own good, feel of the market. And we're seeing multiple listings where we're not getting an offer at the offer deadline that we set. Traditionally, you don't always set an offer deadline because you don't know that you're gonna get 10 offers next Friday or whatever the case may be. As sellers agents, we've been in the habit of doing that. We've been entitled and empowered to be able to create that feeding frenzy. That's shifting. I just had an agent call me last night. If you watch this, I love you. But she called me and she asked me for help. She's from another broker. She said, this is the situation. I thought it would sell. I actually priced it lower. I priced it here so that we could hit here, but it's not working. I don't have any offers. I barely have showings. Like, how would you approach the seller? Like, could you help me? Could you give me some advice? That's the shifting market that we're in. So I just wanted to explain that. We'll probably do another market update in the months to come as these interest rates go up. But that's the context that will lead into a lot of the things that we're gonna say in this video. For my first example, I'm gonna turn this way. So so we're in the community of Ocean Point. This is a community in Ewa Beach that's really popular. You can look at the homes. They're built by Hoseko. Cool homes, cool community layout. The HOA keeps things, pretty clean, so you can only park in certain areas, and then other areas, there's no street parking, etc. Because of the parking situation, parking is a commodity. So let's take this house, for example. It's a corner home, less neighbors. Let's say it has solar. I don't know if it does. I don't see it on the front, but let's say it has solar. Let's say we're on net metering, nice neutral tones. Let's say it's nice and renovated, corner lot. The park is right in front. Just more open feeling. You look out the window. It's not like some other homes down the side street where it's closer. Just everything good. And when you're in the Ocean Point neighborhood, that's gonna be one of the more sought after homes. And it looks like with the yard, certain homes in this community have an option for a third parking. All of the garages are like 420 square foot, detached in this whole community. But then sometimes with this bigger yard, you're able to have a gate, pour concrete, and have a third parking, which would be a huge deal. Now you can have your gym in your garage and park 1 car outside. And this market, still a seller's market statistically. The days on market, the inventory, we're still in a seller's market. I would actually price that home lower than what I want to get for it. And I hope that there's sellers watching right now saying, why, you're crazy, because that's exactly what I want to address. Never mind that there's airplanes flying over, because that's just Ewa Beach. And for buyers too, new buyers who have never bought before, a little easier, because they just, they listen to us, they trust us. Buyers who are mature, 50, 60 years old, and have bought 10 times in their life, in this seller's market that we're shifting away from, they've never seen it before. Not even in 2006 and 2007 have they seen anything like this. So when we say this is what it takes, you need to write these kind of offers, they're like, you're crazy. I'm not writing an offer like that. Eventually they would, and that's when they would get accepted. Think about this. A buyer has been out here offering on everything in Ocean Point, starting at asking, then they went a little above asking, then they went a little more. Then they brought in some cash to support an appraisal clause. They strengthened terms, shortened timelines, and done some other creative tricks that I'm not gonna give away here. Finally got accepted. Or let's say they're not accepted, but they've been punched in the face 10 times, denied, denied, denied. If I want $1 million for that home and I list it for $1 million, and that kind of hot seller's market that has set a standard, set a precedence over 20 months, if I list it for $1 million, the buyers are conditioned to say, oh, 1.1, we're only pre-qualified up to $1 million. Or our payment situation only works up to $1 million. It doesn't even get a look. They see $1 million, it's gonna go for 1.1. No sense in even going to look at it, honey, we're tired. I'm just gonna watch football on Sunday instead. The fact of the matter is, a lot of times the buyers are looking on the home search sites and providing the listings to their agents and saying, hey, we'd like to go see this one. If I price it at $950, it's within their realm, and it's within 10 other people's realm, and all 10 come to see it. Now we have a multiple offer situation. Now maybe we achieve $1,025,000. But if I price it too high, I'm actually shooting my seller in the foot. You know, I'm actually harming the seller in this market, But let's talk about the shifting market. Let's talk about a market where average days on market is 60, 90, 100 days to sell a home. That kind of behavior has been allowed by the strong sellers market that we've been in. So low interest rates, people needing more square footage, people making life decisions after COVID, all of this stuff. Low interest rates being a big anchor to them. So now the interest rates have shifted as days on market increases, as inventory and supply increases. I may not deploy that strategy maybe even today, or maybe even in like 2 weeks from now. I may not underprice a home to get more, but in the last 20 months, I've had to underprice the home because things have been going for 3 to 10%, depending on pricing strategy, above asking price, sometimes 15% above asking. So everyone says, you know, you hear agents, I hate it, win above asking, win above asking. If you check my social media and I did it, call me out. We have agents have been asking too low or lower to achieve higher because that's the way that the market is dictated that we list. I have to put less than $1 million or I'm not gonna get all of the multiple offers that I wanna get for you as a seller. And so for buyers, you gotta remember that. Trust us, situation by situation, home by home, we can place a value in home and kind of get into the head of how did this other listing agent strategize this listing price. So in a perfect, you know, cul-de-sac home, fronting the park, extra parking, renovated, solar, all the good stuff, I might underprice that home so I make you more money. So I came here to the beach to touch on 2 different topics. If you're in a flood zone, I might approach your pricing a little bit differently than I would approach it if you were in a non-flood zone. So if you look up the FEMA flood zone designations, you have AE, so Alpha Echo dash Foxtrot AEF, you have X and D. Typically people are trying to look for D or X, AE, AEF, that's when you need flood insurance, an elevation certificate. It's just a different product. What does that mean? That means potentially longer days on market. Anytime you're gonna have longer days on market, that underpricing strategy that I mentioned at the beginning of the video is that much more risky. Because how would it look if we go on the market at $950,000, we don't get any offers in 3 weeks, and then we jack it up to $1,025,000 and then we camp out. Buyers are looking at you like a wounded dog. You know, they smell the blood. They're ready to come after you. They're checking for motivation. And if motivation is, the timeliness of it is urgent, it's gonna be rough. When we can't guarantee short days on market or we don't feel very confident about short days on market, the pricing strategy becomes that much more important. I wanted to, in these last 20 months, I wanted to put a house on the market for $1 and watch the performance and negotiate. It would have got a ton of publicity, media. I bet you would have made it on the news. I wanted to do that, but we didn't. If you're in a flood zone, because you're right on the ocean, sometimes not on the ocean. Sometimes you're near a river or where the dam is. You know, on the North Shore, they have these areas that flood when the dams are released from Wahiawa. In Kailua, there's a neighborhood. Part of the community is in a flood zone and part isn't. So these are things that matter. And moral of the story, if it equals more days on market, I'm pricing right in the sweet area of what we agree the home's worth. What we agree will get serious consideration. Overpricing is something that I rarely want to go with, but I'll talk about that later in the video at the end. I'll talk about you sellers who want to price high because your house is the best. You just aren't that motivated to sell. You want to price high, whatever the reason, we'll address that at the end. The other thing we can get to here is luxury. A lot of times in Hawaii, luxury is near the ocean. If not, it's likely on a ridge or walkable to the ocean or something. And when something is in the luxury space, well, which tier of the luxury space? North of 10 million, the motivation is more ego-driven, more prestige-driven. It's looked at like a piece, you know? It's hard to put a price on a Picasso. A small group of external people kind of decide that market value and then the highest bidder, right? When you're selling a one-of-a-kind, there's no other piece of real estate like this edge of this cliff in Kahala, on Kaiko'o, in the world, overlooking the ocean. You're kind of approaching it like selling a piece of art. So, you know, north of 10 million, but we can be in the luxury space in the 3 to 5 million in Hawaii Kai and Hawaii Lower Ridge. Probably not getting up there in Makakilo, but there's other places where we can get into the luxury space. At the entry level of the luxury space, in a shifting market like this, the overpricing can still hurt us because we're still affected by interest rates. People expect a $20 million home to sit for maybe multiple years, right? Until that right buyer comes along. 3.2 million in the last 20 months, that should have still been potentially gone in 30 to 45 days, if not sooner. In the luxury space, there are tiers. It'll depend on which level of the luxury space we're in and how we would price a home. If you're a buyer looking to buy luxury, we're gonna look at each piece and see what was their motivation for pricing this way. Was it ego driven? What's the resale value? What are our exits? What's our monetization in Waikiki? You know, at the top of the Ritz or something. We can monetize that and look at that more like a commercial asset. Maybe we apply a cap rate or cash on cash return and reverse engineer the deal that way. So when you're pricing luxury, there are many ways to come at it. It's a little more emotional. When you're north of 10 million, it's a little less of comps in the market and a little more of subjectiveness of, you know, to be fair, the prince who's buying it potentially, the Rockefeller who's buying it or whatever the case may be. One thing's in Hawaii, like there might be a retaining wall near the ocean and it's damaged, but we can't get the city clearance to repair it. You know, that's a whole issue where this home's gonna sit. We don't want to come in low and expect we're going to get this multiple offer situation. Maybe it's in Makaha. So West Side as a whole is different than Makaha Valley and Mauna Olu and like beachfront in Makaha. That's like luxury real estate on the West Side. A lot of different product, little nuances. Buyers, this is for you too. You can get into the head of a lister / buyer's agent and how we're looking at each situation in a shifting market. I'm obviously on the edge of a graveyard. No disrespect. But we're also on the edge of a freeway. We came over here to showcase a couple of things. I was driving in Kaneohe and there's a funeral home. You know, it's a mortuary, like right on the side of the highway. And right next to the mortuary, a house. And I'm always thinking about real estate, right? I'm obsessed. And I was driving by, I was like, man, if I were selling that home, even in this crazy market, I would talk to the sellers, we'd decide on what we could get, and we'd decide on what their absolute bottom line exits were, and we'd price no lower than that bottom line because it's next to a mortuary. Like some people may have an issue with that. In Mililani, recently there was a home that got flipped. It was the home of a horrendous murder. Husband killed wife and kids and then killed himself. They flipped it, it's beautiful. But if I know my bottom line on that is $1 million, for example, even in this market, I don't want to price it too low because who knows how that sale is gonna go. Way less predictable. You have to prepare for a longer time on market to attract a unique buyer. But I have this unique listing in Kaneohe right now. Now I explained to the seller up front, it's a flag lot. The house is painted a green that probably isn't preferential, it's not neutral to most people. It has a garage and it's like kind of attached single family, but kind of has a townhome feel. So I always knew that we may experience more days on market and we missed the market by a few weeks because the interest rate shifting have hurt us. I'm glad we are priced where we are because we're not gonna sell for any less than we're selling for. Graveyard, highway, on the edge of a school where the parking's horrible. The way that I would strategize to price that home if I'm a seller is no lower than my bottom line, even in a seller's market. If I'm a buyer, we might strategize to go after that price and get you the best possible deal because there's something unique about it. They know that they may be in for a long haul and we can exploit that as buyers. So for example, this house, it may not be for everyone. There's a house right over there next to this old plantation graveyard. That we're the house for you and you don't care about that, we exploit that and get the best price possible. So we don't want to be coming from a ground of underpricing, even in a strong seller's market. All right, so I wanted to stop here at Palm Villas. This location serves a couple of points. When you're selling in a community where there's nothing unique about your home. So the home that we started off with, we called out something unique in a popular neighborhood. Corner lot, fronting a park, extra parking, paint color, the solar, everything had everything going for it. And you can be a little more entitled and aggressive in how you list that home. And you come to a place like Palm Villas, you know, there's end unit versus non-end unit. There's, you know, the second floor versus the first floor. But I mean, for the most part, a bunch of the same thing. There's always something else on the market. Timing the market is a difficult thing. One thing we do want to time is not being in competition with 5 of the same product at the same time. So if we're in contact, you know, months before you're ready to sell, rather than, hey, Derek, been watching your videos, we love it, we trust you, let's sell my house, and I need to leave next week. Well, if that's the case, and there's 5 of the same thing on the market, that doesn't help your situation. Anytime I'm pricing a home in a community like this, where your product is ubiquitous and common, paying attention to the other inventory that's on the market at that time, and that can sway us by the margin of thousands, $10,000 maybe in a community like this. How does your home, like what factors do you have that make you unique? Have you renovated? Are you do you have a yard? Are you on this busy street? Because there's 100 of this unit in this complex that are not on this busy street. So when my 2-year-old gets out, way less, you know, it's way less likely they're gonna get ran over by a car further in the community. Are you near a pool that's gonna be noisy, etc.? While pricing in a community like this can be a lot easier in a way because it's cut and dry, it can be very nuanced, and you want to pay attention to the factors that either strengthen or weaken your unit. And if your unit is weakened because of things such as it's on the ground floor on the street, is it hit by the afternoon sun and it's just burning hot in the afternoon because it's west facing? Maybe we're only doing morning showings. Another thing is, well, we talked about this in one of our last videos. If these things start to fall into foreclosure, this pendants we say in the industry, it's a domino effect, because when they can't pay their association, it gets divided to everyone else. Then when they can't pay, it gets divided. It gets to a stabilization point. And if we're in a downward trending market in a community like this, I'm gonna explain to you how we need to be aggressive to exit quick, because 30 days could cost you tens of thousands. So I told you there was a girl, a friend in the industry, who came to me and said, hey, I think I made a mistake on how I priced my home, etc. I had seen the propaganda, the media, beautiful home. I was surprised it hadn't sold. I sent it to our buyer's agent, Mahe, and she showed it to me and she goes, I think this is it, the location. It's on a road just like this. They're priced at a certain level. The seller's bottom line is actually here, and I think it's gonna be tough to get it because that busy road has spoken to them. They should have priced it differently. Now they're gonna have to go off of the market for a period of time to reset the listing and make it a whole new listing. And then it comes to the market fresh, like a new product, change the pictures, maybe get new staging, all costly mistakes. But you might watch this video, so I love you, hope it works out for you. Unless my buyers are getting it then. So another aspect of home pricing, whether you're a seller, whether you're a buyer looking at prices, or whether you're a seller pricing, is view. You may have a mountain view. Most coveted and most sought after would be obviously an ocean view. Sometimes you have mountain and ocean view. And then a lot of places in Hawaii have a golf course view like this. You know, what's the strategy when pricing with a view? I get more aggressive. A large percentage of people moving into Hawaii or buying in Hawaii are from the mainland, whether that be military, you know, government transfers, medical professionals, or just people coming in. And why come 2,500, 5,000 miles and not get some sort of view? So that's definitely a thing. I've seen in certain communities, you know, a perfect example, Ko'olina. In Ko'olina in Kailani, which is the first community on the right, the units front facing the ocean can go for hundreds of thousands more than identical units back set in the community. I feel like I've seen $500,000 plus shifts just because of the view, but certainly multiples of 100,000 depending on, you know, what kind of apples and apples you're comparing. So views make a big difference. So let's say, for example, in this community that an identical model were worth $1 million, you know, a block in. The identical house here, it can probably go for 150,000 more just because of the placement of the community. Now, when you're on a golf course, if the buyers have a good agent and an agent that golfs, which I'm, you know, I kind of suck, but we'll at least pay attention to what's the likelihood of your house getting hit and it being a nuance. Is it closer to the green? Is it right where people are teeing off? Is it at a bend? Are people regularly shooting towards your house? All of those things should come into play when you're on a golf course if you have a really experienced and thorough agent. The point of this segment, or this part of this segment, is views matter. Views can matter in the order of hundreds of thousands of dollars. When you're in the luxury space in Kahala and certain areas of Waikiki, it can be even a greater factor. You know, Port Lock, right on the front row, versus Port Lock near the Triangle or by Kalani on the Ole Highway. You could, I mean, an identical product, but you can have like $1 million differences in homes because of the setting and the price. We're being confronted with planes and golf carts, so. In a resort community, things might be priced a little different. So Bill 41 just passed in Hawaii. Now this is not legal investment advice. I haven't read the bill page to page, but the highlights of Bill 41 in Hawaii, or on Oahu, are that the minimum rental period that a general homeowner in a residentially zoned area can rent a place is 90 days. There are exceptions. Transitioning military, medical professionals, corporate rentals, there's a handful of exceptions. Again, I don't want to give investment advice, but a handful of exceptions. But the point is, only certain zones are left, or only certain long-standing license holders are left. So for the most part, for you new buyers, you're going to be buying in Waikiki in a certain zone, not in all of Waikiki, or in Turtle Bay on the North Shore, a resort, or in Ko'olina. So I'm actually, for the last 2 days, I've been considering buying a deal myself in Ko'olina, and the numbers that people are reporting are so different. I'm hearing people talk about the B and the E units in Kailani Golf Estates, a certain community, top line, you know, grossing $12,000 a month. I talked to other players in the community and they're like, crazy, $6,000 or $7,000 a month. Well, obviously that underwriting for that investment decision is, you know, worlds apart. But that's what I'm leading to, is when I'm buying in Waikiki, Turtle Bay, Ko'olina, for the most part, I'm underwriting it as a short-term rental asset. So I'm looking at what kind of long-term rents can I get. Now in parts of Ko'olina, for what you pay, it's dismal for long-term renting. If you're gonna buy someplace in Hawaii and you just wanna rent it out to 12-month plus tenants, those resort areas are not the space not the area in my opinion. Right now in Kailani and the B units, you probably sell them for around $1 million. And the highest recorded rent is $3,700 per month for a 12-month rent. It's not good. If you're putting 20% down on $1 million in Ko'olina, and you want to buy the short-term rental and it's $1 million, well, you're financing $800,000. In today's interest rate market, with the association fee and everything, you're probably looking at like a $6,000-ish a month payment for that $1 million property. The average of what I'm hearing is maybe $7,000, $8,000 on the high side from a lot of people on what they get per month. Now others are talking about they get $12,000 per month. Even at $1 million and grossing $12,000 per month, that's not a great return. We can jump on a plane and fly to Scottsdale, Arizona and just buy the same numbers, same percentages, lower exposure, lower risk, and maybe higher occupancy with less restrictions. Panama City, Florida, the Smoky Mountains in Tennessee, these like long established vacation rental markets that legislation is not likely to change. In Ko'olina, in Waikiki, and Turtle Bay, this bill is likely to help the prices in those communities. If we think these interest rates are going to cause these houses to go down, we can talk about your financial situation. In fact, we just made a video on that exactly, right? Whether or not you should buy, what you should think about if you are buying. If you're a seller, you could maybe use these two videos to talk about what the market's going to do over time and whether you should exit right now, whether you should go to myhawaiihomevalue.com right now. So it may be a hedge because although we don't know yet, it seems that this bill has only helped Ko'olina. Casual investors, people that want a Hawaii vacation home and want to, you know, partially monetize it in their off time when they're not on island, places like Ko'olina have become, you know, it's one of a few on island and maybe the very best place to do that. So actually I have a couple of buyers right now and they're considering doing that. And so Ko'olina, they're not familiar with it, but maybe the very best place for them to monetize an asset in their absence. And so what does that mean for pricing? When you're looking at an investment, when you're looking at a commercial deal, you're looking at multifamily, there's different metrics you can use. So we can look at cash on cash return. How much cash did you have to put in the deal? How quickly are you getting your cash back? IRR, internal rate of return. So what's the total performance? Maybe in Hawaii, you don't cash flow that well as you would in Scottsdale or in Panama City. But on a 10-year hold, maybe the IRR is higher because our appreciation could be so much greater. Especially when this bill was just passed where that's one of the only places where you can do that kind of investing. I really like the 10-year outlook. Not investment advice, but I actually think that the 10-year appreciation in Ko'olina is gonna run higher than the island on average. Cap rate is really designated for multifamily, multi-units, but some people like to apply a capitalization rate to even a single, investment asset. You could do that as well. So that's how we're pricing those right now. Even in the shifting market, we've seen Ko'olina appreciating at a pretty fast rate. I sold my clients a home for $900,000. Robert took a promotion. He's going back to the mainland, bittersweet. We're gonna be pricing at $1 million now from just 3 months ago. Now, granted, they did some upgrades. They invested in it a bit. Would I expect that here? Maybe not, but Bill 41 has affected these short-term rental zones. So when you're looking at short-term rentals, looking at resort assets, it's a whole different thing, and we need to have a whole different conversation. A piece that I forgot, tax assessed value versus actual market value versus list price. Now this is relevant and important for buyers and sellers to both understand. Tax assessed values are typically trailing behind the market value of a home for a few reasons. One, tax assessed values can't keep up with what the market's been doing recently. So it used to be that the tax assessed value was within tighter margins of the fair market value for most homes. The disparity between tax assessed and the fair market value in the homes that are in the interior of the neighborhood, in the cul-de-sac with the extra parking, there's probably a greater disparity between tax assessed and actual value. If that home is on this busy street, then there's probably a smaller disparity. But in general, what we've been seeing in the average in the middle of the neighborhood, homes going for like 10 to 15% over tax assessed on average. Now in some areas, you see homes go for 20% more than the tax assessed value. So the tax assessed value might be $1 million. It might sell for 1.3, maybe even 1.4. The moral of this story is tax assessed value, actually not relative at all. It's relative for taxes. And even when they catch up in 2022 and 2023, the tax assessed value will likely be still lower than the fair market value. That is, unless we enter a significant housing market correction and recession. And I don't know if this part where I talked about my Kaneohe home, that's kind of unique if I talk about it earlier in this video or after this little clip. I wanted to share how important pricing was for this home. Now we are in escrow, over asking. Shoot, I just wish I could share more. We're still going to be in escrow when this video comes out, so I have to, my fiduciary duty is to my seller, not to the channel, unfortunately. But we're getting an amazing outcome, and the broker that competed with me for this listing, who came before me actually, and if they just would have brought the contract, they would have done business together. Their high-end range, I believe, was $950,000. We're in contract significantly higher. That less skilled person, less aggressive person would have been making these people, they would have been losing 6 figures by going with these people and their pricing strategy. So it's important, the nuance you hear on this channel and the passion and the aggressiveness, it's important. You don't want to overprice, you don't want to underprice. Sometimes when it's not ultra clear, you have to kind of strategize on what the sweet spot is and perceive value with market shifting conditions. It's all super important stuff. Like, we're literally making $100,000+ difference right now because of pricing strategy between 2 agents. One more experienced in years and one aggressive bald guy. MyHawaiiHomeValue.com for sellers, or just for refinancers, for homeowners. You want to sell in a year from now, it's better to understand your home's value today. My friend lived there, sold her house during the pandemic, got her a house down the street off market so that Auntie, 95 years old, could live in the home on the first floor. The good news is we're able to reposition into something that she got for probably $100,000 undervalued. MyHawaiiHomeValue.com. My name is Derek Okahashi. My team is called Core Team Hawaii. I'm just obsessed with this stuff. I love real estate. I love talking about it. I love helping. So please hit us up.